I find the work to be very rewarding, and I enjoy going for those early morning walks and getting paid for it. I enjoy working alone in the peaceful hours of the early morning. And then once I'm finished work, I have the rest of the day to do as I please. So you can't beat that. If you do 2 or 3 hours a day, you could definitely do $2,000 to $3,000 a month extra income.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the show that is laser focused on inspiring you to start or to scale your side hustle income stream. I'm your host, Joan Posivy. Back in episode 21, you met Brian Winch, who built a side hustle into a $650,000 a year operation through picking up outside trash on commercial properties. What I love about this business is how simple it is to start, how little it costs to get going, and how profitable it can be. So I wanted to have Brian back on the show for an update. He shares what types of properties a beginner should target first, how to connect with the right decision maker, and what to say when you do. He walks us through how to handle the most common objection, and I love his free reporting service that he shares. It'll help you stand out from the competition. And if you're worried about losing momentum, Brian's got advice for starting smart so you don't get discouraged. Now here's my conversation with the author of Clean Lots and returning side hustle hero, Brian Winch. Hey, Brian, I am thrilled you're back on the show. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here again.
Well, one of the questions I get asked the most is, what is the best side hustle to start right now? And honestly, Brian, it really depends on the person and what they're into and their skill set and other factors. But for someone who likes to be physically active and is looking for a low cost to enter side hustle, this one's hard to beat. And I think you'll agree, it's not sexy. It flies under the radar of most people. And I've recommended it to so many aspiring entrepreneurs since we spoke. But after all your time involved in this business, in this industry, why are you still such a fan?
Well, I find the work to be very rewarding, and I enjoy going for those early morning walks, if you will, and getting paid for it. I enjoy working alone in the peaceful hours of the early morning part of the day. And then once I'm finished work, I have the rest of the day to do as I please. So you can't beat that.
Really? And for a lot of our listeners, that would be going to their full-time job. You mentioned getting paid to go for a walk. That's intriguing. Briefly, what does the job entail?
I provide an on-foot litter pick service outside commercial properties for property management companies. I don't work for the individual businesses. Rather, I work for the management company that manages these commercial properties on behalf of the owners.
Okay.
And I use simple, unique hand tools that allow me to walk the properties and clean them almost as easily as going for walks.
Wow. And as you're picking up the trash, is the disposal facility on the property, or is that something you got to take away and deal with?
Actually, all the commercial properties, they all tend to have a number of waste dumpsters. In some cases, the waste dumpsters are for wet garbage or just trash. And then there's the recycle bins like paper, cardboard, etc. So yeah, once I've finished cleaning up, I just toss material into one of the two dumpsters and I'm on my way to my next job site.
You mentioned that you're dealing with the property management companies. Was that a conscious decision because it's less work than going out and into individual building owners?
Most properties out there, commercial properties, are not self-managed. Some are, and those are typically the REITs, the real estate investment trusts. But by and large, properties of all different types of sizes, the smaller ones, the medium, or even some of the larger ones, they're managed by professional property management companies. They know what they're doing and they know how to add value to these properties, maintain them properly. So the owners just pay a management fee and they don't have to deal with all the hassles.
Okay. So you're saying that most of this, say, industrial buildings, strip malls, it's not going to be your ma and pa owner. It's going to be more of a larger corporation that then hires a property management company. Is that
exactly? Having said that, we do, and we've always in the past and still do, work for some of the smaller investors that maybe own a small property or some of the larger ones. Like I mentioned, the REITs. We've always, in almost 40 years of doing business, being in this industry, have worked for the REITs, and it's a good arrangement. They really manage the properties well, and they really care about them. They like to make sure they hire the best people possible.
Sure. And let's see, REITs, a real estate investment trust. And they basically a holding company that would own a number of properties.
Yeah, and they're either privately owned or their shares are traded on the stock exchange.
I know you started doing this yourself, one property, but how long have you been teaching people how to get their own cleaning business started?
Well, I started this business in 1981, and I was in it probably 4 years when it dawned on me that this would be a simple and a great business for other people to learn and do. So that's when I started writing my first manuscript, and the first version was just like a booklet, if you will.
Okay.
And then over the years, I kept adding to it, and it kept growing. And then I made the conscious effort of not to turn it into a thick novel where there's so much of fluff and people aren't going to be able to comprehend or remember everything. So I basically just provide only the information, but all the information you need to know. And in addition to that, my contact information is in the book because I provide, as my way of giving back, I provide free support.
Nice. And remind me again the name of the book.
It's Clean Lots, America's Simplest Business.
Awesome. Well, I know this is going to depend on the local market, but if someone worked this, say, before their day job, what kind of monthly income could they realistically expect starting out?
It all depends on the size of the properties that you get, how fast you walk the properties. I tend to move pretty quickly because I want to get my job done and move on.
Yeah.
But it's possible. We have people that are working for us that are doing maybe 2 or 3 hours of litter cleanup in the early morning hours. And sometimes it's 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes it's 5 days. We've got people maybe just only wanting to work Saturday or Sunday. If you do 2 or 3 hours a day, you could definitely do $2,000 to $3,000 a month extra income.
But in creating that contract with either the building owner or, in your case, the property management companies, is it a contract price or an hourly price?
It's a contract price.
Okay.
My most successful student to date was a teacher, and he decided to start something in the summer months with the goal that he would start it and grow it, and then he'd get other teacher friends of his to do the work. Long story short, after about 3 or 4 years, he's now operating in about 38 states.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Nationwide. So anything is possible.
If a person is looking at 1 to 2 properties to get started out, what hourly rate are you suggesting that they build in terms of even coming up with that contract price? Again, I know it's going to depend on the market and the property, but...
Yeah, exactly. It can vary across the country. But I typically suggest people start like anywhere from $35 to $40 an hour. And then I've got a pricing formula laid out in the book as to how you arrive at the price you're going to quote. And you bill your customers once a month for the same monthly price. It's year-round. This is a year-round service. People don't take time off during the year from littering.
Right.
And people ask me, what do you do, Brian, if it rains? Or what do you do if it snows? You just dress accordingly.
Suck it up.
You do the best you can. And some days are going to be easier because of the weather, and other days are going to be more difficult. It all evens out.
Yes, yes. And welcome to the world of being a business owner. It's all on you. You need to show up.
That's right.
As far as startup costs, last time you and I talked, you had mentioned about $100 plus insurance. Is that still true today, or do we need to bump that up a little bit?
Well, it all depends on how you're technically set up, because, you're going to be working for yourself, so you should have a home office. It would be nice to have a scanner because then you can scan and print documents, invoices, for example. But typically the equipment, hand tools, it's about $100. You can use your own vehicle for transportation.
Right.
And then, insurance, very important. You should not ever start any type of business, side hustle, whatever, without some sort of insurance because it's going to protect your liability. So basically, it typically runs on average about $1,000 for the year, the insurance.
So the insurance is the biggest ones, the tools you need to pick up the litter, possibly garbage bags. What other expenses might there be, or ones that are often overlooked?
There's the obvious ones, the cost of operating your vehicle, the cost of gasoline. Obviously, you're going to be operating based out of home. Any expense that you incur to operate your business, like your heating, electricity, utilities, house insurance, or tenant insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's based on the square footage that comprises your office compared to the rest of your dwelling, your house.
Right.
And that percentage you can write off, and which is good for it's an added bonus if people start a side hustle to make money. But
Yes.
here's a way you can also save money.
Right. Okay. So if I'm driving around a neighborhood and I see some strip malls or industrial buildings and I think, this might be a good prospect, how do I start to reach out?
You can approach one of the businesses, and it's important you talk to the manager or the owner of the shop, because an employee typically won't know the answer to the question you're going to ask them. And that is, you just briefly introduce yourself and say, this is who I am, and my company specializes in cleaning up litter outside commercial properties. Could you please give me the name and contact information for that individual? And owners or managers will have no problem they know, because they deal with these people. If in case they have a complaint, they have an issue, they know who to contact in terms of who the property manager is. So that's the easiest way. Don't make the mistake if you see a sign on the window or on the landscape for lease, because usually it's not the same company. It can be, but more often than not, they're two separate companies. The one that manages the property and the other one that leases out any vacant base.
Okay. And what if the property manager or business manager there simply says, we've already got somebody looking after that we're happy with? What's your response?
They will. They already have somebody who cuts the grass, and somebody who is their plumber, and somebody who's their electrician, etc. So basically, you need to not come across as salesy, but sell the benefits of your service. What distinguishes your service from the others. And so, but a lot of people will say, but Brian, I'm not a salesman. I've never been in business before, right? Well, if you're going to start a side hustle, you have to at least have a basic understanding of sales skills. But I keep emphasizing, I don't sell the service, sell the benefits. And I'll give you an example now. Our service is provided with unique hand tools after hours without vehicle interference, so we can clean up your entire property.
What do you mean by without vehicle interference?
So our service is provided after hours. I mean, you will find some contractors in your city providing the service that are out there maybe at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And obviously they're not going to clean up any areas where cars or trucks or any kind of vehicle is parked on top of.
Yeah.
And quite often, sometimes if a property management company provides that service themselves, it's through a building operator.
Right.
It's hit and miss. And a lot of times they don't know that there is a service such as ours that exists until you contact them and you point out, these are the benefits. We use the right tools that allow us to clean up more material in less time. Our service is performed after hours, like the right time of day, where we can clean up everything. And then the biggest one is we provide a free reporting service. I'm still shocked that in this day of age, how many cleaning contractors, cleaning companies will perform their service and that's it. Okay. And they can be out there and they'll notice maybe fresh graffiti. There's property damage. And they take the attitude with somebody else is going to report that. That's not mine. They're missing out on a golden opportunity of developing and fostering sometimes a lifelong business relationship. I've dealt with some of my clients for over 40 years, the same customers, because they love the value, the extra value that we provide in making their job easier. So if you can imagine, if I take a picture of fresh graffiti on the building and I send that to my customer, the very first thing the next day, they can forward that onto their graffiti removal contractor. Yes. Yep. It makes the job easier. Instead of having to go out there and find out where it is or sending their building operator to make a special trip out there, which is costing them money to find out to hunt down where this graffiti is and then contact the graffiti removal company.
Yeah, that is a fantastic example, Brian, of a huge value added to the client, but it costs you really next to nothing, like a brief amount of time to grab that photo and send it to them. And you're doing it in such a way that they've got enough context around that graffiti, for example, that the person can, like you said, easily forward it to their graffiti removal company. I mentioned to you in our last interview back in 2022 that I owned a self-storage facility, and had that service been available, that would have been hugely valuable to me. I was living about 20 minutes outside of where the facility was located, and if I got that text from you the night before, I would know to reschedule my morning a little bit to go by the hardware store, whatever I needed to do to address that. That's huge.
It's a no-brainer. And you can apply this to any type of business or service that you get involved in.
Yeah. And you mentioned when you said the right time of day, I had this flash to when I owned a delicatessen, and more than once, a potential supplier that wanted my business, a meat or cheese company, they'd come in and try to talk to me at noon to pitch me. I'm like, seriously, people?
Yeah.
When do you think the busiest time of day is for me?
Yeah.
It was insane. And you had mentioned you have some clients that have been with you over almost 40 years. Do you, as just a business strategy, gradually bump up the rate that you're charging them every year? A couple of percent?
Well, in some cases, our customer will write that into the contract, and we never even requested that. They'll give us like a 1.5% increase every year over a 3-year term or something like that.
Okay.
Usually we won't raise our prices every year, because the longer we're in this business, the easier it is for us to stay in business. In other words, if we're starting out with, let's say, 2 or 3 properties, there could be a little bit of driving distance in between. But as we pick up more properties, and they will basically fill in the spaces, the gaps. So travel time becomes less each time.
Becomes more efficient all the time.
It becomes more efficient. And then what we're charging becomes more relevant, and more so over the years as we add more properties in between, without having to necessarily raise our price every year. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good idea. And especially if you have a really good relationship and your customer appreciates the extra value, it's easier for them to say, without having to open up that can of worms. Because what I mean by that is, sometimes in this industry, anytime you mention that we want to raise our price, there could be, usually the bigger property management companies, that will trigger up. Now we have to put everything out to tender. Oh, okay. And then in some cases, decisions are made not by who you're dealing with, but by somebody else who will just go with the cheapest bid. You have to be careful with that, but you learn that through experience.
And you mentioned that oftentimes it's the property management company that writes that into the contract. So typically, are you not using your standard contract, but these larger organizations have one that they prefer?
In a lot of cases, like the small to medium-sized property management companies, they'll use our contract. Yep. Okay. And you see, our contract proposal, once it's executed, signed, dated, et cetera, that becomes our contract, both parties' contract. Right. The bigger the REITs, like I said, the real estate investment trusts, or some of the larger property management companies, they're pretty big and bureaucratic, and they've got their own standard contract that kind of applies right across the board for everyone that they deal with. And so it'll have all sorts of clauses. It could be like 20 pages, but they will they will always use like your contract as, let's say, Schedule A or Appendix A. Okay. And then make reference to it.
And how many properties are you servicing now?
It varies. You win and lose. It's the nature of the beast. The contracts. It's typically 150 buildings or properties. So then, and there are various sizes, and we're always picking up a few properties. Like yesterday we lost one building, and today we picked up 2. It doesn't always happen like that. Typically, in a year's time, we might pick up 5 buildings, maybe lose 1 or 2.
Right. And you might lose them because of cost competitiveness, or the building sold and they've got their own team coming in, or
the latter. Usually it's not necessarily price. It's usually someone else comes in and maybe they self-manage, or else it's a property management company and they, for whatever reason, they prefer their own people to do the cleanup. It's just a way of getting their building operators out to as many of their properties every day and to be seen. I always question that logic, because if you're running a business, you're not necessarily standing or by the door looking out the window waiting to see somebody come around and clean up the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for someone started out, for a beginner, what's the best type of properties for them to target first?
The retail properties, like the small strip plazas, it could be like the medium size. The larger properties, like the town centers, they could be very lucrative, but it might be a bit intimidating when that's your first property and you're starting out. But because there are far more of the small to medium size, that's more, you're more likely to start out with one of those.
That makes sense. And what is the biggest hurdle for someone getting started?
I guess you got to make the decision or decide for yourself, is a cleaning business something you want to do?
Okay.
because not everyone wants to do it. We said at the beginning of the show, it's not a sexy business.
Right.
You have to enjoy working outdoors, and you have to enjoy, if you're a people person, I don't think you'd like this business. But if you're an introvert and you like the early morning hours, the peace of being up and out that time of day, then this is the business for you.
And maybe what you need to do is partner with somebody who is the more extrovert and will do the cold calling and the door knocking.
I'm the introvert. I handle everything. I'm the salesperson and everything. Like I say, I hate that term. But like I say, you just talk to people and you explain what you can do for them in simple language or English that they can understand. And it's easy. I barely graduated high school. I didn't go to university, have no formal business training. I just learned from doing. And if I can do it, I think most anybody else can, if so long as you're willing to put in the work. I have a saying, I may have mentioned the first time I was on your show, but if you work your business will work for you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of our side hustle listeners out there will be the ones on the ground doing the work initially as a way to understand the business, to discover how long it's going to take to clean up lots. And then at some point, maybe start contracting out some of that work. I would think that somebody in their retirement would be a good person to contract this out to, particularly if they want to remain active and they're getting up early, and you can send them out and get paid for a walk.
Exactly. I turned 65 this past winter, and I don't work the same hours I used to, and neither do my brothers, who are a year younger than me. I've got two twin brothers. That's the great thing about working for yourself. You decide, how long you want to work, when you want to quit, how many hours a day you want to do it. And we've just decided this is great exercise for us. When we get paid to go for a walk, why on earth would we stop doing it? What are we
Are you still cleaning some of the buildings?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I've go and put it 3 hours on average, 3 hours a day. And, it's just something I got used to doing for all the years. I used to go put in over 8 hours a day. I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't have to.
Right.
You don't have to do this work, even if you don't want to do it at all. After a while, you can decide, now I've learned the business. I have the experience knowing what it takes, how to properly price the service, and just get other people to do all the cleaning for you.
What do you think is one of the biggest challenges that the owner-operator faces in this business? They've got it up and running. They've got a few properties.
Some people, it takes time. Like I say, you have to be patient. You have to be persistent. But for some people, things don't happen quick enough for people. You've got to make your breaks, and you have to stay consistent. You have to chip away. You have to have a plan and keep chipping away at it. And eventually you'll be rewarded. And the longer, like I say, you're in this business, the easier it becomes. And what I mean by that is the work you put forth when you first start building, you build the foundation. Maybe 6 months later, someone you contacted is going to reach out to you and say, well, I didn't need your service then. I need it now. I've got 4 properties. Do you want to go take a look? And then as you develop your client stable, then you're going to find out every once in a while that one of your clients is going to contact you and say, Brian, we just picked up another 1, 2, whatever, a couple more properties. And we love you guys at our other properties. Here are the addresses. Can you go get back to us with pricing? And then even referrals.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, referrals. Yeah.
There's the referrals. People network. Property managers network. There's an association called Building Owners Managers Association, something like that. And people talk, and they'll get together and say, who do you use for your litter cleanup? Who do you use for litter?
Right.
Cleanup?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you'll get an email, or you'll get a phone call. That happens all the time. I'll get a phone call out of the blue, and someone introduces themselves and they say, yeah, Dave Palmer gave me your contact information. I got 2 properties. Can you help me out?
Yeah, you can ask for testimonials in that monthly billing, or even as a follow-up email. You could always offer some sort of an incentive for a referral that you land the contract. There's all sorts of ways that you could build that business, go into Chamber of Commerce, Board of Trades, that kind of thing.
Don't forget getting free publicity, because we've done that over the years. I've appeared on the city's biggest lunchtime news show, or whatever you want to call it, the news hour, and then supper time hour. We were written up in the largest newspaper here in town, and how we got involved. And actually, my dad did this service. He was a janitor, and he did this as a side hustle. He needed to make some extra money to to support his three boys growing up. And he took me along with him a couple of times when I was about 12 or 13. And I was blown away. I thought, you get paid to do this? And then years later,
you need to up my allowance.
Yeah. But years later, when I was looking at starting a business, that's what the idea that came to mind. And I thought, you know what? I did it before. I enjoyed it. I know I would enjoy doing it. So, here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And always remember that free publicity piece. I mean,
it's not hard. Like with the news media now, and like there's so many different channels, etc. They're all looking for content. And again, you just approach them. You find out who do you contact. There's a tip line or whatever.
Yeah.
And you reach out to them. And again, you don't come across as salesy,
right?
But you share the slant, or this is what makes me or this product or this service newsworthy. And then if they see that, and then they're going to say, how soon can we arrange an interview?
Right. And have those fun stories or examples or something that'll draw in their listeners. Like I was asking you about what would be, again, you've been at it for so long. What's one bizarre situation that you came across when you showed up one morning to do your walk? Does one come to mind?
Yeah, there's one where it reoccurs, but I'm always surprised how careless people can be with their paper money. And what I mean is they'll put their $5, $10, $20, $50 bills in their pocket along with their car keys.
Okay.
And then when they're out in the parking lot, they pull their keys out and the paper money falls onto the parking lot. And then I arrive hours later, and for whatever magical reason, it's still sitting on the lot.
Right.
No one else has seen it yet except me.
Okay.
Because I'm looking for, most people don't look at the ground. It's usually just one bill, like a $5 bill or a $20 bill. And I'm thinking,
right,
great, bonus today. But sometimes there's been like $5 here, a $10 bill, two 20s and a 50. And then I start looking around thinking, is somebody playing a trick on me to see my reaction? But the biggest payday, if you will, bonus I ever got was I was cleaning up in the springtime and I was dumping the garbage into a waste dumpster. And I looked out at the ground and I saw this roll of I didn't know it was money at the time, but a roll of paper with an elastic. And it was all covered in dirt and mud and everything. And I think it had been sitting under the dumpster for months until the dumpster was pushed further back.
Okay.
And so I took it home and cleaned it off, and I rolled out over $600.
Oh, God. Oh, that's awesome, Brian.
But I felt bad because there's no way I could return it. I know for a fact that a lot of these small, and like you've been a business, a lot of these small business people, they do everything, and they took out the trash at night. And then maybe the bank roll that they were going to deposit in the bank on their way home fell out. And all of a sudden, I hope it wasn't an employee because they probably lost their job over that. But yeah, like I said, people can be careless.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. I do want to just touch again on the importance of staying with this, because you're going to get a lot of no's at first. Most people that you go to approach, they're probably either doing it themselves or somebody else is looking after it for them. And so it might take, like you said, several trips. But then there's also the piece that we get better at it, at our pitch. So for example, if I were to go in the first time and somebody says something like, I do it myself, I might not know how to address that. But then what I've always done in any situation like that, I was a presenter for years, I would say to myself afterwards, is kind of a debrief. Okay, what is it that I really liked? What do I want to do again? And also at the same time, how would I address that, in this case, objection, even more effectively? How would I answer that question better?
We don't ever go in to meet property managers. They have signs on the doors, no soliciting. They don't want to deal with salespeople of any kind. Typically, what's easier for us, we do a Google search, for example. You do a search for property management companies and use various terms, a list of property management companies or property management companies that manage commercial properties, et cetera, et cetera. And then you compile your prospect list and then you practice an elevator pitch, which is 2 or 3 sentences here. Introduce yourself, and this is what we do. So anyhow, to answer your question, if the gatekeeper, so to speak, says, you know what, we're happy we have somebody who does that for you, then you just say, great, that's great news. But you never know. Things can change. It wouldn't hurt to have our information so that should that day come along.
Right.
And they've got nothing to lose by saying, No, you put it that way that you understand. You're not going to take offense. And so anyhow, we've been very successful with that approach. And then in some cases that's exactly what happens is they have somebody and then things change. People change the way some businesses operate. They decide, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore. We're going to do this. And then all of a sudden, who do we know? And then all of a sudden, there you go.
Yes. And chances are you've got some sort of a follow-up system that you might drop them a note 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, something like that.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people want things instantly and if they've never been in business for themselves or like even a side hustle, because this is a side hustle business. This isn't like a DoorDash or whatever. It can take. You've got to be patient and don't give up if you feel that you're giving yourself 30 days and I'm going to have 7 buildings by 30 days. It's possible. I had one student who started up and then all of a sudden after a week, he said, Brian, I picked up 15 buildings.
Oh my God.
So it's possible, but in most cases,
that's not going to be typical.
That's not going to be typical. You've got to look at this as, okay, my goal is to get one property, one customer to start with. And that could be after the first week. Like with me, it was after my first week, but in some cases it could be a month. It could be 2 months.
Right.
It might be 3 months, but you have to have a plan and just keep chipping away at it. Just don't go all gung ho in 1 week and then sit back and wait for all the success and all these buildings to come by. Because a secret, or it's not really a secret, but it's a truth, is property management companies, they're babysitters and they're always putting out fires. But at the end of the day, they're always looking for the best service for the best price and the best value. At some point, they're going to be looking for maybe a competitive bid, or they want to make a change. Right. And then they'll reach out to you. So, or maybe if they don't, you follow up maybe 3 months, 6 months later, just remind them and just make it a brief, courteous call and then see what happens. And they might say, oh, I lost that information. I'm glad you phoned, whatever.
Do you have any contracts that are month to month or 1 year?
All of our contracts are month to month, meaning that if either party doesn't like each other, all you got to do is provide 30 days.
Right.
But like some of those contracts, like you say, they run indefinitely.
Right. You're going to do a good job. So the cancellation isn't going to come from your end.
Yeah. Like even if we sign a contract, a 3-year contract, it can still be terminated after 30 days. That's not something I would worry about because that's the nature of the beast in any service business. If you're a plumber or plumbing business and you've got a contract with a property management company, right? A lot of these companies, they've been in there with the same customers because they know how to provide the right service and the extra value. They've been working with the same customers for 10, 15, 20 years. So it's nothing to be afraid of. Oh, I could lose my business or my contract after 30 days. You'd have to really be doing bad work to lose your contract.
That's right. Because it's work for them to go out and find somebody else. Exactly. They would rather keep you.
That's right. And they'll give you several opportunities. And they reach out to you and they'll say, if there's something that they're not sure of, they say, Brian, I think I've seen the same piece of litter on the site have you been around? You can address that. And you just explain again when you're there once a day. Oh, remind them, you know what? Our contract is from Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You were there Tuesday? That's why you saw a piece of garbage.
How do you handle it in the contract? There's got to be some stipulation where things go beyond litter. I'm thinking of, I don't know, somebody dumps a mattress or something like that.
Oh, yeah. There's a perfect example of the free reporting service we provide. Yeah. In addition to the graffiti, if we come across some, somebody must have been moving and they didn't want this furniture anymore. Yeah. You know what? You mention, you bring that to the attention of your customer. Now, your customer, because they enjoy working with you, they love you, they might think, well, maybe we can put some more money in Brian's pocket. They don't know. They may not know. And they say, Brian, can you take care of that for me? That doesn't mean that you have to do it. Right. It just means they're asking you if that's another service you provide, which we don't. But the same thing. A lot of property management companies, they deal exclusively with 1 or 2 junk haulers. So once you've communicated that there's someone stumped off all this bedroom furniture, they can take that image of yours and forward it to with the contact information, the name of the property, to the junk hauler, and they can get on it right away.
I'm just curious how you deal with that in the contract, do you describe like something of a certain size that you don't pick up or weight? Like how?
Oh yeah,
how does
yeah. It's specific. And we provide examples of contracts in our book, in my book. But yeah, it's litter material. Litter material is any kind of small debris like cups, cans, bottles, fast food wrappers, candy bars, things like that.
Yeah, and you would. Yeah, sadly, and you would have the conversation with your client, and like you said, either party could cancel it after 30 days anyway if the two of you had different expectations.
Right.
But yeah, it's common sense, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just get on the same page as your client. Like, for example, if there's been a massive windstorm and there's broken branches all over the parking lot, they would have the common sense to know that they would contact their landscaper to handle that, not their litter contract.
So you and I talked last in 2022. Have client expectations changed since then? Are they asking for anything new or?
One of the things that happened coming out of the pandemic, it was property managers became very conscious, maybe more so, of the appearance of their property with the public. Okay. The public hated to see all of this used PPE laying around, like masks.
I remember that,
and all that sort of stuff. Property managers, I think, have really come to understand maybe more so the importance of maintaining a litter-free property. Not only can people can trip and fall on a can or a bottle. They don't want that liability risk being there, so they want to make sure that their properties are kept litter-free on a regular basis.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially from that liability standpoint. That was one thing I always focused on really heavily on my self-storage facility was snow removal, because we were in a heavy snow area. It was basically a ski town. And I think I went overboard, but that's okay, because in 18 years, we never had really any issues with anything, which is wonderful. Is there anything else someone thinking about getting into the cleanup business should know that we haven't covered yet?
Just get involved, get into it for the right reason. If you enjoy doing what you're doing, it's not work. You won't see it as work. Don't chase the dollar bills or dollar signs thinking that I can make a ton of money doing this. I don't really like doing it. But even if you get other people to do the work, if you don't have a passion for what you're doing or for what you're doing, and especially when you run into some of the not road barriers, but you've got some problems, something, you're less likely to find a solution to that if you're not that enthusiastic about your business. I mean, it's easier for you to give up when times get tough if you're not invested emotionally into it.
Yes. And I don't care what business it is, how wonderful any occupation, career, side hustle looks like, there's going to be an aspect or more of aspects that you're not happy about. But that's the growth piece as well. I had a guest on recently, Jason Vandeveer. He said when you get that sort of uncomfortable feeling, like the introvert that has to go out on that cold call, he says, I remind myself this is what growth feels like. So this is outside of my comfort zone. So it's not a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. It's forcing you to do something that's perhaps in the past holding you back.
That's right. And it's not just business skills. You can take these skills that you learned from operating a side hustle or a business and apply them to your personal life.
Absolutely, for sure. Everything from goal setting to money management to,
budgeting.
Yeah, for all those reasons alone, everybody should have a side hustle. But, What's our best way for our listeners to connect with you, Brian?
Check my website out, cleanlots.com. And I think everything you need to know is there. And if not, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Fantastic. We'll definitely drop a link to that in our show notes.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
So what's your best tip to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
Everyone gets inspiration from a different way that's the thing. I would ask that question back to you. What inspires you to decide that you want to start a side hustle? Is it you want to put your kids through college? You've got debt to pay off? You want to start a business in retirement? Those are all the motivating factors that lead you to start a side hustle. And then you expand your search from there. What would I like to do? Can I do this kind of work? What are my hobbies? What do you think that it would be really cool? Like maybe you love cooking. Maybe you can come up with your own hot sauce. And then do your research and to find out what type of licenses, food permits, or what do you need to do in order to operate legally. And but you know what? Once you've gone through that, you'll be in a far better position to start whatever you get into. And then my biggest piece of advice there is just start. One Take one step at a time, but nothing will happen if you put things off and you just say, one of these days, I will do something.
Yeah. Get a deadline, get it on the calendar. I know I've got to do that for myself.
I do that too. Just find a way to stay focused and just do it. Whatever works for you.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your deep knowledge of the lot cleanup business and for walking us through how to actually get started and grow it. And of course, for being today's Side Hustle hero.
Well, thank you.
Listening to Brian reminds me how sometimes the simplest ideas can turn into the most powerful opportunities. He's literally getting paid to go for a walk. And not only has he turned that into a business that's grossed over $600,000 a year, but he's also shown that beginners can get started for very little money. And with the right steps, grow it into something substantial. One of the things I love about it is how scalable it is. After you find your first property and work out the inevitable kinks and surprises and get into a routine with it, you can add another property and another until, if you choose, you can hire others to do the litter pickup. And if the cleanup business isn't your thing, you can still consider how might you use the principle of Brian's free reporting service for your side hustle to set you apart from the competition. Meaning, what's an additional service that you can provide your customers that has solid value for them, but adds very little cost to you in both time and money? They'll love you for it. For example, there's been times when I've done in-house corporate events, say a 1-hour talk. I've allowed them to record it for no extra charge. That doesn't cost me anything, but provides them with a valuable resource material and also keeps my name in front of them. Sometimes the smallest touches can make the biggest difference in building long-term relationships. And speaking of long-term, please don't get discouraged if you don't experience overnight success with your side hustle. Despite what a lot of the TikTok videos suggest, it takes a lot of time and effort. Whether you're cleaning parking lots, launching an online shop, or running events on the weekends, it's so important to celebrate the small wins and keep moving forward. And as for the lot cleaning business, Brian said if you do 2 to 3 hours a day, that could turn into an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month. That's a pretty nice side hustle, one that could truly change your financial picture. Well, that's a wrap for today. If our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider showing your support by visiting sidehustlehero.com/support. That's where you can shoot me a virtual coffee. It's a real thing and a fun way to give the show a caffeinated thumbs up. Thank you so much.